Hello there, welcome back to the Rich Fritzky Show. As always, thanks for listening. I appreciate it. As to last week, Emily, that wedding reprise was quite a hit, reminding me, I guess, that which is personal and not political commentary seems to appeal ever so much more to people out there. But I created a monster of a kind last week in that I have 11 other children, and my Maggie is now insisting that they all deserve their moment in the spotlight as well. I guess I'll have to work on that for the future, for my Maggie is one formidable woman. This week, less than 2 weeks out from the fear and loathing of Election Day, I'm going to wax a bit poetically about faith, for it is faith we lack. In each other, in our institutions, in our politics, in our elected officials, in our neighbors, in our country, in our churches, and yes, even in our gods and faith itself. As to my own great life's battle, know that 90% of those who get Neisseria meningitis do die, and most within the first 24 hours. And no one over 50 had, to my doctor's best knowledge, ever before survived it. On death's door for 6 months, I was in a coma for 3, and I awoke to what was 6 to 7 weeks of uncontrollable fevers that would literally top out daily at 107. In an ethereal fog, I do remember the ice blanket and the bags of ice by my sides. Multiple surgeries, atrophy, 9 months of extremely painful and difficult rehab, and fully 15 months away from the warm shores of home. The final price paid was 445 consecutive days of hospitalization and rehab. 2 feet, 2 legs, 9 1/2 fingers, a mouthful of teeth, the end of my dashing races to the car, late as always for the next meeting, the end of basketball games with my boys, the end of hikes, the end of socks and sneakers and golf clubs, and the onset of a constant chronic pain. But head and heart were, against all odds, intact. I had been extravagantly upheld by the spirits and prayers of so many. Blessed I had a story to tell about miracles and the power of prayer and never ever giving up and rejecting fear and maximizing the power of the strength within. Out of an unforgiving tragedy and utter darkness and quite a bit of suffering, there was reclamation and an impossibly improbable new life. My body was forever broken, but I saw with eyes wide open, and my spirit exalted and magnified the goodness of God. So yes, I have faith, because I shouldn't have made it through all of that. Fast forward 10 years to the morning of November 9th, 2016, when most of the folks I was close to awoke numb and sad. Despair was everywhere in the air, and so I wrote a fatherly missive to my own. It read, "Good morning. Hold your heads up. I do not believe in the end of man or of love or of hope or of goodness. And I believe that America and even its people are better than what we demonstrated yesterday. Even though they voted for someone who demonstrated intolerance, ignorance, and indecency, even though much of what he said and did scared. Remember, it was the grand performance of a reality TV star, of an actor who played a vile part and struck a racist, but also, and maybe more importantly, populist chord that sold. In point of fact, we know his temperament, and it disgusts, but we do not know what he really believes or thinks or is not capable of. Yes, it is going to be a rough ride, and much that we care about is threatened. But the what, when, and where, and even the if remains uncertain. I do not think fighting equality or same-sex marriage or actually deporting immigrants or banning Muslims or even building the wall will necessarily be high on his list of priorities, or on his list at all, although it played well with ignorance. On climate change, on health care, on you. Wait. for he may well have some conversion experiences, as honor and truth and fact were not part of his campaign agenda. No, I believe in you and in us and in the resilient capacity of goodness and of grace. After all, there is no darkness if we refuse to let it in. You are valued, and you are more important than Donald Trump. You and your values and your dreams, they are bigger than any presidency. Keep them, keep your cells, keep your hopes, keep your refusal, your resistance, your dignity, your honor. Just keep it, and you cannot and will not be defeated. Remember, love always, always, always trumps hate. I am more embarrassed for my country than scared. And yes, it is quite symbolically raining. But this is not necessarily the apocalypse, however much it may feel like it in the moment. The election is over. But on all of the issues, it ain't over till it's over. So pick yourselves up, shake it off, smile. Find someone to hug. You ain't done yet. I believe in wholeness, homecoming, and joy. Dad. In truth, actually, it was the apocalypse. And I was in that first paragraph dead, dead, dead wrong on every issue mentioned, for he proved to be capable of the unimaginable, the unthinkable, the inexcusable, the absurd, the ignorant, and racist and bigoted, and also very, very mean-spirited. Imagine I actually cut him some slack, but never again. And here we are, on this stunning autumn day, 12 days before Election Day 2020, and I am beyond exhausted by him, by what is a daily avalanche of crazed rantings. Just a few days ago, he lied more than 50 times in the span of a 3-minute appeal to seniors alone. I follow each and every poll. I check the data and every major news outlet. And again, I just want to scream and shout and hit something, even though I lost the ability to even make a fist 15 years ago. In the end, I guess I simply pray. In the end, it all comes down to faith, and so it is to faith that I turn. I am humbled today by the wonder and love of my Maggie, my children, the loves in their life, and my precious grandchildren, by my siblings and in-laws and cousins and old friends, by the angels and saints who hold me up, by those who embrace my passionate interest in long-deferred social, racial, and economic justice, and a bright sun arising in a resurrected, reclaimed America, and so too by the youth and beauty and promise that I see in my students. We are challenged by the cynicism of our cynical age, by the dangerous, demeaning, and dehumanizing nature of our politics. In that vortex, faith regularly takes its hits, and all too often in responding to the noise and discord and angst, many just put their faith on the shelf, or render it but a reminder rather than a living force. Beyond the Neisseria meningitis, by the way, my own faith continued to be tested by diabetes and MRSA and C. diff and end-stage renal disease and dialysis and a kidney transplant and pulmonary embolisms and many pneumonias and brain injuries and colon cancer and more. But to all of that I say, so what? Big deal. For the truth in this life and on this earth is that we all, every one of us, take our hits, be they physical, mental, or emotional. Every one of us is challenged. Everybody hurts. And no one is without fear or doubt or days of despair, because life, at least at times, beats us all down. The great trick on a life's journey, I believe, is simply to refuse to allow the struggle or the brokenness or the holes inside you to turn you into someone that you are not. You must keep yourself. Keep the soul God knew and marked from the very dawn of creation. Faith enables you to forgive yourself and others. Faith centers and grounds. Faith shines the light in the darkness. Faith gives you peace. As to suffering and struggle, we all ask why. Why me? Why God? Why anybody? We question, we doubt, we wonder, we despair. And all too often and again we lose faith. Yet in his famous prayer of peace, my old friend St. Francis of Assisi tells us that despair must give way to hope, can only give way to hope, for the one cannot exist without the other. Where there is despair, there is always hope, either lurking in the clear light of day or just around the corner in the breaking dawn. Hope is, of course, born of faith. I just happen to place my faith in the babe born in Bethlehem, who in abject humility took on our humanity. While he once said there will be trial and tribulation in the world, he just as quickly, immediately, reassured us, but I have overcome the world. As we too in this damn vortex of strife and challenge and even madness are all striving to do. Notably, I have studied the ties that bind Christianity to Judaism and Yahweh, to Islam and Allah, to the Hindus and the divine or the divine mother, to the Eastern mystics, the Buddhists, etc., where the prescriptions and rules for living are all so similar, reminding us that while there are so many different trees raising their branches up to the heavens in praise, we all seem to go to the same source. And as to my agnostic and atheistic friends, truth is, it is your faith in humanity, a heralding faith in your fellow beings that astounds, and in whom, of course, I believe God dwells. As such, all of us, faithful to faithful, believers to non-believers, friend to friend, join hands. And on this earth where God's work is most assuredly our own, isn't it our faith in one another where hope lives? In our collective ability to retool and rebuild and recreate? And to where we all cannot help but turn our attention today, with November 3rd looming larger and larger in the window. I cannot defeat Donald Trump. Only we can, only you can. I cannot stop the lying, the deceit, the subterfuge, the hatred, the bigotry, the selfishness, the manipulation, the desecration of his misgovernance. Only we can, only you can. And again on this earth, God's work is our own. That's the deal. And so it is rather and only my faith in we alone, my faith in you alone, that will save our land. 52 years ago, in one of the most moving speeches ever given, on the night before he was to be killed, Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of a mountaintop and a promised land, one that the Lord had allowed him to see, one that he was certain and assured of. I have never stopped longing to go there. His words in that sacred image, even in the darkest of days, even during these last 4 most difficult of years, never stops calling us. It lives, it wants and waits. And his words still beckon us 52 years after the fact. His voice, his emotion, his pent-up emotion, his bleeding out, it still inspires us. As his words only grow louder still. Oh yes, out of the darkness the dawn, and out of the darkest the brightest. On November 3rd, with faith in one another and in the goodness of America, we will together stop the retreat. We will stop the bleeding out and begin again. In faith and spirit and concrete action, to begin the slow, long climb back up towards that summit, that mountaintop, onto that which is brilliant about America again. And finally, on one day of improbable joy, the fulfillment of the incomparable resilience of the greatest dream of one freedom fighter who was indeed worthy of the name King. 12 days to go now, folks. Keep the faith. Do your bit. Bring it home. I pray you all have another great week. As ever, smile on your brothers and sisters. And thanks so much for being with. Take care now.